Hey everyone, I'm Harsha and I'm super excited to be joining you on the 8th of June for a session that's going to be practical, hands-on, and honestly pretty fun. We are diving into a topic that might sound a little technical at first, but I promise it's something every modern developer or engineer that needs to understand. We will be talking about DevOps and CI/CD integration with cloud providers. Now I know some of you might be thinking, wait, what is even DevOps? So think of it like this. It's how we go from writing code and getting it live on the internet. But most importantly, it has to be automatic, secure, and my favorite part is it has to be done without the panic. In this session, we'll actually walk through how to build a complete CI/CD pipeline from scratch. That means from pushing your code on GitHub to running automated tests and watching your app get deployed in the cloud. So it's all without touching the server. You'll see it happen live. When I was a student, we used to manually copy files, restart servers, fix bugs in production, pure chaos. But now with DevOps practices, the process is more streamlined. So you write code, you push it, and then your pipeline takes care of the rest. So we'll use real tools like GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, or similar cloud services. So it's just like that we are doing in the industry. And here's the best part. You don't need to be a DevOps expert to get started. If you understand how apps work and if you are curious about how teams deploy faster, this session is going to connect all the dots for you. So whether you are a developer, tester, or just curious about how tech behind big apps work, join me on June 8th at 7 p.m. live on Zoom. It's going to be packed with real-world examples and practical takeaways. That is, which you can try out actually by yourself. So don't miss it, save the date, let's build a pipeline together. See you there.
Am I audible?
Yep.
All right, so a very good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you joining us today. I'm Sarah Zaruk, and I'll be your moderator for this exciting session. In the series of workshops conducted by Beauty of Clouds, where we bring you some of the most useful and in-demand topics from the world of cloud computing and software development. Today, we have got something truly special lined up. Let me start off with a question. Have you ever stopped to think about the apps we use nowadays? From ordering foods to booking a ride, attending classes, or even scrolling through social media, everything's fast, super smooth, and always updated, right? But have you ever wondered what's happening behind the scenes? Like, yes, behind every smart app, every quick update, and every smooth user experience, it's the cloud computing doing all the hard work silently in the background. So this being our hot topic for today, we are really proud in presenting a highly valuable session titled Modern Web App Development. To give you a clear picture of how modern web apps are built and deployed in real-world projects using DevOps tools and cloud services that makes development faster, smarter, and even more efficient. And to guide us on this journey for today, we have with us a true professional in the field, a lead engineer at Brand Finance with years of hands-on experience in this field and passionate about sharing his knowledge with us. And I guess he's a perfect guide to walk us through this session and walk us through the complexities of modern web apps. Without further delay, let's welcome Mr. Prasad Srimal to take over the platform. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Sarah. First of all, thank you for joining everyone, and thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so I will introduce myself a little bit. As Sarah explained, I'm Prasad Srimal. I'm the lead engineer of Brand Finance. The company is not in Sri Lanka, but we have a big community and a software team in Sri Lanka, a heavy armed and very talented software engineering team we have with the company. And currently we are providing two major software in our company. And since Brand Finance is not a software company, it's a brand consulting company, one of the largest companies in the world. But as a software team, like in-house software team inside the company, we are doing the most cutting edge technologies. We are using most cutting edge technologies to build our software inside the company. And for me personally, the current project I'm working on is kind of most complex project I have been involved in as a front-end developer so far throughout my whole career. So with all those experience, I could say that the major topic today, the MERN stack, is one of the key field, I would say. You could enter to the field as a software engineer or a new engineer to the field. And currently it has the most community, and I believe that it has the most community and the largest tech stack. I mean, the largest technologies and cutting edge technologies, all those technical stuff with that stack, the MERN stack. And let's, without explaining more, let's start with my presentation. Am I allowed to share the screen? I think so. Let me try. While I'm sharing the screen, I would like to ask you to raise any question you have, but please mention in the comment without turning on your mics, because so everyone can ask questions at the same time. So everyone allowed to ask questions at any time in chat. I'm focusing on the chat. I will answer right away. And also, if I'm not, if my connection, whatever the case, if you are not hearing me clearly, please mention it immediately, so I will be notified. I hope that's fine. Let me share the screen. Right. So let's start with MERN stack. First of all, if you already know what MERN stack means, that is fine. In the first stage, I'm going to talk about a little bit about MERN stack, but after that, assuming that everyone has an idea, as a just a little bit idea about MERN stack, I'm going to talk about some cool stuff about the recent changes and some alternatives you could use in MERN stack, because I think that's the major part that most of the new developers should understand. So we had a legacy MERN stack like a couple of years ago. And right now we are going with the transition of AI. So we have to be adapted with them. So you can go along with those AI transition and still can perform in MERN-stack in a better way. So let's start with why MERN-stack. These are the key points to discuss. Why MERN-stack and the elements of MERN-stack, React, Node, Express, and MongoDB. And the alternatives. I would like to talk a little bit more about alternatives because nowadays we have so many alternatives you should know. So you won't have to be very strict with exact elements in MERN-stack. Even though if you use alternatives, then it's not that it would become something else other than MERN-stack, but still it is very useful. And finally, if we got more time, I would like to walk you through the full stack engineer roadmap. I'm not going to walk you through like a graphical roadmap here. I'm just going to discuss. So this would be a completely discussion. I'm taking much more time to discuss. So while I'm talking, everyone may take your notes. And if you have any question, any clarification, please put in the comment section or the chat section. Right. Let's start with why MERN-stack. I started the discussion by giving a little hint why we use MERN-stack. So I have about 7 years of experience in the industry. I graduated from the University of Monterey and started my software engineering journey in 2018, July of 2018, and this is almost 7 years now. And currently, I'm working in my fifth company, I think, fifth or fourth company, depending on some companies were not. I didn't work so long to count them, but let's say 5 companies. And I mean, currently, I'm working in my fifth company. Throughout all those companies, I have been involved in as a developer for more than 20 projects, I believe. I didn't count them exactly, but I think that that would be the number. And when we joined the industry in 2018, the technologies were not that obsoleted, but I would say not heavily equipped with the technology right now, like now. So back in those days, we used Stack Overflow to explore so many issues with the code. We didn't have ChatGPT and all the language models we have nowadays. And still, I think the MERN-stack, at the time, MERN-stack stood out as a big technology stack to develop things because even at the time, people could easily find solutions through the stack, and also the community was very large. So you could find so many updates. You could find so many new approaches to do some solutions or give some solutions. So many things at that time with this MERN-stack. So even that time, MERN-stack stood out. So most of us used MERN-stack to do web applications. I start my journey with JavaScript. That's the base of the MERN-stack, as you know. So we know JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language. Like 12 or 15 years ago, people say that JavaScript is not a programming language. It's just like a script, or you could do something in the web browser. That's about it. But nowadays, you could do pretty much anything with JavaScript. And because of that, not just because of that, but with that, MERN-stack came as one of the largest and one of the heaviest technical stack in the software engineering world. So with all that, I would say if you would like to use MERN-stack, I would say that would be a great step you could take to enter the industry, because because of all those facts I discussed about, there is a large amount of openings in the industry, in the world, not specifically in Sri Lanka, because that's a whole different topic about openings and all those things in Sri Lanka in the industry. But overall in the world, there's a still, I think there's a huge gap between doing actual work in web development in most of the companies to doing some or keeping some old tech stack. I think that would be keep going with old stack is good, but I think there's still gap to fill out all those new developers with the exact or the expected tech stack, which is MERN stack, I think, and with the right attitude and all that. So the goal is to provide better developers with knowledge about MERN stack. And when I'm discussing about the roadmap, I will say some other technologies as well. With all that, plus you need to focus on how you can behavior in the industry to take a long run. So that becomes your attitude in the industry. So you have to take all that as an all-rounder to be in the industry or step into the industry. So again, if someone asks you to mention or ask you to explain why MERN stack, why you should choose MERN stack to enter the industry, that would be the answer. We have a big community. We have so many latest technologies and tools to build web tools using MERN stack. And nowadays, we have so many AI assistants to do so many things with MERN stack. And MERN stack is based on JavaScript. Nowadays, JavaScript is kind of a easiest language, one of easiest languages to understand. And JavaScript is very, lightweight. You don't need any platform, any configuration in your computer to run JavaScript, because JavaScript is running on your web browser, as you already know. And let's say if you don't have any web browser in your computer, still you can use or you can operate JavaScript if you have a Node.js environment or server. We will talk about Node.js later in the discussion. So with all those facts, I think MERN stack would be the easiest and best way to enter to the industry as a software developer. So if you can, you can ask that, can't we use any other stack at all? You could, definitely. If you are already familiar with something like Java, you could use Java Spring Boot. If you're already familiar with a front-end framework like AngularJS, not AngularJS, it was the very first one, Angular, you could use it. And if you're familiar with any other technologies like .NET, we have PHP, Laravel, so many things. I would say if you already have that specific knowledge in specific area, you could go through that and you could come to the industry with that knowledge. If you're focusing on a full stack journey completely specific to JavaScript, I would say you could use or you should use MERN stack, because when you are using MERN stack, you don't have to follow so many different languages, right? If you use, let's take a custom stack example, like front end would be AngularJS or ReactJS, backend would be Java Spring Boot. Then you will have another frameworks to build some other connections, and also you can use MySQL or MongoDB as the database. That would be okay, but you have to follow all those languages one by one, and you have to follow all those documentations separately. And the advantage of MERN stack is if you follow JavaScript, if you know JavaScript, you have to follow only the separate documentation just to make sure that you are doing it right, and to do some framework specific or library specific work, right? So knowing JavaScript will take you to a good place in MERN stack, because it is not completely, but mostly it is based on JavaScript. So knowing JavaScript, you can use it to front end, you can use it to back end, you can use it to do all the connections, and you can easily deal with databases like MongoDB and MySQL, obviously. That's another good reason to use MERN stack. So easy to use, easy to understand, easy to follow, heavy, large community, and so many latest updates with latest tools. So you can choose MERN stack with that. Let's go with each element in MERN stack to get some understanding about that. Let's start with ReactJS. ReactJS is a JavaScript library, not a framework. What's the difference between framework and library? Short answer will be a framework is a completed environment. It's like a standalone environment. In that framework, you could use pretty much everything in that environment specifically, and it will be another whole world to explore inside that framework. But when it comes to a library, still you are using JavaScript. You just need to import that library from anywhere in the world, right? Let's say you are importing from internet. If you are using ReactJS, you still have to import ReactJS library from internet, from the ReactJS documents or ReactJS repository to use it, along with all the modules and functions. So only then you can do all the stuff related to ReactJS, unlike Angular, because Angular is a framework. Once you set up Angular in your computer, once you started a project in Angular in your computer, you don't have to import anything, because in Angular, you have the completed environment. So you are inside it, and you have all the accesses to pretty much everything what Angular provides. But in ReactJS, you still have to import it as a library, and all the management stuff will be still in the React repository in the remote server, right? That's one advantage that comes with ReactJS, because you don't have any specific configuration in ReactJS. You just need to import it as a library and use it. So that makes ReactJS a library, not a framework. And with ReactJS, you could build JavaScript. Build web applications with JavaScript. React usually comes with, actually, you have to follow a tool, or actually, yes, a tool to create a new React application in your computer. It is always supported with NPM, which is Node Package Manager, because to run React applications, we usually need a Node.js server. When I say usually need, there are other options to run React.js as well, like Laravel Mix. But the topic is MERN stack. So in MERN stack, we use Node.js, obviously. So once you have Node.js available in your computer, you can run React application in your Node.js server. So that comes with a compiler called Webpack and Babel. So both are not compilers, but Webpack is configuration module, and Babel is the actual compiler. The combination of Babel and Webpack will make sure that when you are coding in ReactJS, it will convert it once you run it in the browser. Run it on the browser, it will convert it to the actual JavaScript code. So browser will understand that JavaScript code and it will run it. So I would say React.js is very lightweight and very understandable. It provides very understandable code structure to run JavaScript applications. So to actually code JavaScript applications, when you are coding in pure JavaScript, it will be not that hard, but still you will have to follow some old patterns like there is lack of abstraction. There will be very repetition of codes. But with React.js, you can do so many variable management. You can do memory management very well. You can do much more certain stuff without having much more codes. Like it will be less code, more work. That's the real benefit we can get with React.js as a library. But when it compared with Angular, a framework like Angular, React is very fast than Angular because React has, we call it DOM, document object model, which is the actual hierarchy of the HTML structure you have processed in the browser. That document object model has to be manipulated when you are doing your coding, right? So when you change things in your code, in your HTML structure, whatever you use in the inside your code, finally it will become an HTML code structure. That will be the thing rendered by the browser. So that HTML structure would be the document object model. It would be like a set of objects. React treats that document object model in a different way than Angular. That performs much more faster, right? Because like Angular use it, in short, I would say Angular doing the manipulation with or acting with the document object model in an old pattern, while React.js is acting with the document object model in very effective and short way, I would say. In that way, React.js is very fast with by rendering all the things and providing things to the browser. So React has been very key element in MERN stack to build your front-end applications. So is that the only thing that React provides, the fast processing and all that? Not only that, React can improve your performance of your front-end application, your UI, your user interfaces. React has so many latest technologies, like we call them React hooks. Those React hooks has been becoming very key things in React environment, React ecosystem to do certain stuff like performance improvements, to provide or serve you very fast UIs. And you can deal with so many UI improvements, like you can attach so many UI frameworks like Material UI. You could search about these things like Carbon Design System. There are so many things you can attach with React.js. So when you are developing React.js applications, you don't have to worry about using so many CSS in your applications, like thousands of codes in CSS styles and all that, because React supports for pretty much all the latest famous UI frameworks like Material, as I mentioned, Material.js, Carbon Design System, Ant Design. You have Bootstrap, and like Tailwind CSS, so much of them, right? And when you're talking about different kind of modules, we have so many modules in the NPM repository. It is very large database of modules, JavaScript modules. Let's take a couple of examples. Like, let's say you need to build a different kind of calendar component in your application, in your front end. You have your basic calendar in HTML5, but let's say you have to come up with very fancy styled calendar component, and you still need to take the control of the calendar component in every aspect to provide a different kind of styles, provide different kind of data to make it in different appearances. So then you could use calendar components from different libraries, like from Material UI, or there are so many standalone calendar components built in Node.js repository. I mean the NPM repository. So there are so many libraries you can import to ReactJS applications without coding a single bit, right? After that, you can customize them as you want. So without putting much more code, with ReactJS, you could do so much of them to build very heavy UI things. Like obviously, Facebook is built in ReactJS because Facebook is the company that introduced ReactJS back in 2011. So you know that how complex Facebook UIs, and also Instagram and WhatsApp, right? So all those are built in ReactJS because they introduced the language. That's about React. So when you are using ReactJS, you have to run it, as I mentioned, you have to run it in Node.js application. So let's talk about Node.js then. Node.js is another JavaScript language or JavaScript framework. We can say Node.js is a framework because Node.js is completely configured environment or setup that you can configure in your computer. And once you configure Node.js, I think the latest version is Node.js 20 or 21. You can run a server in your computer, like a local server. And also Node.js has a different command line, and with those command line tool, you can run so much important commands to run Node.js application as well as run ReactJS application. With Node.js, by using JavaScript, you can create your own backend. You can create from simple backend to very large, heavy backend using Node.js because Node.js comes with latest tools and technologies upgrades nowadays, and it supports to so many different databases and connections and all that. Since Node.js is in JavaScript, it uses JavaScript. Since JavaScript is a single-threaded language, Node.js is single-thread language. What does that mean? Imagine you have a pipeline of water. So when you open the tap, that pipeline takes the water to the other end, right? You can consider, or you can think about that pipeline is one thread of doing something. In this thread, it takes water, right? In the programming language, one thread is kind of a sequence of calculations or sequence of functions or processes to do something. So when you open the tap, or when you trigger the function, the first function of a statement in the programming language or in your application, it triggers the sequence one by one, and at the end, just like the water pipe, at the end you will have the answer, but you have to wait for all the calculations to be triggered one by one in the sequence, because you only have one pipe, right? You have only one thread. So with that example, you can imagine, or you can picture that how single thread application works. You have so much of code in your application, but it all calculate one by one to get the final answer, right? This is different from Java environment, because Java is single thread application where you can run multiple threads at the same time to do calculations. So you can think, oh, obviously not think, but obviously Java is much more faster because it is multi-threaded, right? So we have to do something to gain the same environment or same performance what Java has, which is multi-threading, to our Node.js applications, right? Because with a single thread, it won't become a good language to use, right? With a single thread, it would be obviously very slow to process. So if you have the control to multiply that pipelines to like having 10 pipelines at the same time, you could bring so much water than having one. So just like that, in JavaScript, there is one option you could use. We call it web workers. Using web workers, you could have an environment something like Java with multi-threading. So you can use multi-threading environment in JavaScript. So that doesn't mean that JavaScript is multi-threading. JavaScript is still single-threaded, but you can turn it into a multi-threading application using some tools like web workers. So I'm giving these ideas and words and all these technologies by thinking that you are taking your notes, so you can, after the discussion, you can search them around to get to connect all the things I'm talking about. Yeah, so in Node.js applications, like I said, you can use multi-threading environment to faster your calculations. And since you are using JavaScript in Node.js applications, it should be very easy to understand. And it comes with pretty much all the advantages that JavaScript has, right? With Node.js, this Express.js is another heavy and very intelligent tool to use, because when you are using Node.js as a backend language, you always have to communicate it to your front end, right? Let's take a simple typical example where you in your front end application, you request a call, or you let's say click a button to get some data to the front end. So that call, we call it API. That API takes that message to the backend. Backend process it and takes that message to the database, and it requests needed data or requested data from the database. Once database provided them to the backend returns it to the front end as the result. So that round trip is always the case when you are using APIs to deal with backend data, I mean the database data. And to do that exact communication or that round trip, you need to use some different tools in Node.js. Express is one of very famous and very powerful tool to do that. That's why Express.js has become one of key elements in the MERN stack. So while using Express.js, you can create your REST APIs in your Node.js application. And not only that, you can provide securities to Node.js application, I mean the REST APIs. And using Express.js, you can use so many domain manipulations things, like you can restrict those APIs, you can allow those APIs, you can blacklist those APIs, you can whitelist those APIs from different kind of sources. There are so many things you can use using Express.js related to the APIs and all the communication stuff, right? And also using Express.js, you can deal with different kind of databases. Express.js has so many tools to deal with authentications and authorization and all the connections between user handling and all that. There are so many tools and so many functions in Express.js you could use to handle all that. Because Node.js is a backend application, one of the key requirement you have to be focused on is authorization and authentication, right? When you have a login system, like when you have a user login and user registration system, you always have to keep the security for the user logging sessions, because there could be some much more valuable data in your system related to each of the users. If you think about like a banking application, there are so much secret data in your database that has to be very secret and very confidential, specific to users. So in such applications, in such environments, you always have to think about how to design the authentication process and how to design the authorization process. What's the difference between authentication and authorization? Authentication is the login, or have the, granting the accessibility to a certain system using username or password or whatever the method, right? Nowadays, the authentication is very strict with MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. With that, authentication would be very secure. And opposed to that, authorization is having different permissions to do something, right? That comes with different roles in the application. So if you have admin or super admin role, you could do pretty much anything in the application, even though you have authentication. That means you are logged into the system. But if you don't have authorization right, you can't do things in the application if the application is developed in the right way, right? So to do certain stuff in an application, you have to have both authentication and authorization, the right authorization. And using ExpressJS, you can do them pretty much everything in a better way. Also in ExpressJS, I think you can provide so many, like I would say, if someone is trying to hack the system, ExpressJS has so many tools, latest tools to prevent them. Like it comes with some tools like Helmet. Helmet is a different JavaScript module to have some securities to Node.js applications. But I think nowadays ExpressJS has the same abilities to provide some security headers to APIs. So whenever API is communicating through HTTP protocol, it has the necessary securities and security protocols and security headers to deal with things like hacking, things like attacking, things like port scanning, so much of them. So in that way, ExpressJS is very handy and very powerful tool. Let's talk about the database side. When you are using MERN stack, most of people, I have noticed that most of people use relational databases like MySQL. Even though MERN stack is meant to be using MongoDB as the main database technology. I think that depends on a few other facts. Even though you're supposed to use MongoDB in MERN stack technology, choosing the right database technology is one of key facts in your project, right? So it doesn't mean that you always have to use MongoDB in MERN stack, or you always have to choose another database, even though you are using MERN stack. That's not the case. Even though you are using MERN stack, choosing the database is depending on different facts, like how your project works, what is the domain, how much of data to handle, and do we need relationships much more than keeping the data in a structured way. Those things has to be considered to choose your database. If your system have so many relationships, it would be better to use a MySQL database than MongoDB, because MongoDB doesn't have relationships. If your database has so much large data, so much amount of large data, and you are not considering about relationships but keeping data in the structured way, you better use MongoDB then. And let's say if you have so many unstructured data and so many spatial data like shapes or different, when I say shapes, like something like in Google Maps, you can see different shapes for different elements, like building have different shapes, lakes has different shapes, like some mountains has different shapes, so many different shapes you have, and roads have curves and all that. Those unstructured and unquantified data can be considered as spatial data. If you have those kind of spatial data and unstructured data, you could use PostgreSQL, like object relational databases like Postgre. And also, if you have so many graphs to show, you can have graph databases like Neptune or Neo4j. There are so many options and so many facts to choose, facts to think about to choose the database, right database. When it comes to MongoDB, as I mentioned, MongoDB doesn't takes any, it don't have pretty much relationship environment, right? If you're familiar with MySQL is relational database technology where you store data in tables and tables are relating each other, not each other, like every table doesn't have to be related to each other, but but MySQL database is, it has so many relationships between tables, and you can access to a table record, and with the foreign key consistency, you can look up for another table or another data using the foreign key. So that's how you can chain your final result, right? In MongoDB, what we have is a very structured format like JSON, JavaScript object notation, which is a very specific way to structure data. And with that data structure, in MongoDB, you could easily use JavaScript ES6 commands like find or filter or so many of them with MongoDB data structures. Unlike MySQL, because in MySQL you have to transform the MySQL result into the JSON format to use the same JavaScript functions to playing around with the data. But in MongoDB, you just need to get the result and playing with them using JavaScript functions, inbuilt functions. So it would be very easy without doing any transition, because transitions are very expensive calculations. So it takes more time to process. Without having them, you can easily do things with MongoDB because it's very close to JavaScript data structures. And in MongoDB, you could easily host it in Mongo Atlas. That's the official servers and official documentation for MongoDB. And that official website, you could host your own MongoDB setup for free, up to a number of capacities and number of data sets, or something like that. So up to the limit, you could use it for free entirely for your projects, your academic projects, your own startup projects. And also you could use MongoDB in AWS, something like DynamoDB. And I think you can use MongoDB in your local as well if you have a properly configured local setup. But as I mentioned, if you still have to be considered about, or if you are still thinking about having more relationships in your database application than having much more structured data, I recommend to use MySQL or any other relational database type, because MongoDB is not really working with relationships, right? So that's kind of an architectural decision to do. Usually in software companies, we have software architects, we have CTOs, we have not CTOs, we have a CTO, single CTO, and we have software architects, we have tech leads. Those are the people who usually take the decision about those architectural stuff. Right. That's about the elements of the MERN stack. And as I mentioned, there are so many alternatives these days for those elements. Why we are talking about alternatives? Because nowadays we have a rapid technological transformation with AIs and all that, and we have to be adapted with, or we have to be updated with the latest technologies what we have. And in MERN stack, we have so many latest technologies we could use instead of the legacy or standard elements or tools in the MERN stack. Vue.js is one very good, not heavy, very lightweight front-end application or front-end framework you could use. Vue.js is another framework, not a library, but when it compared to React.js, I would still think that React.js is better in developing very very structured and heavy frameworks, heavy front ends. I would suggest to use Vue.js for simple applications, or if you have so much things to do with UI, not so much things to do with the functionality, then you can use Vue.js. I would recommend, but in the MERN stack, I would still use React.js because React.js still have the largest community between most of the front-end frameworks. But Vue.js is a very good framework, very fast, very lightweight. Then we have Nest.js. Usually people confuse with Nest.js and Next.js, which is another front-end framework. Recently came up with server-side rendering. So you could use Next.js as a front-end framework instead of React. Next.js use React, the same React code, but with a different manner. This is not Next.js. This is Next.js to be a replacement for Express. So we discussed about Express.js, right? We discussed about some key facts and key advantages of Express.js, and Nest.js is a very good replacement for Express. Express is not old, but nowadays, I think there are some other stuff we have to build separately. We have to import separately to prepare the backend very powerful. But Nest.js, with Nest.js, I think most of those powerful tools are inbuilt, and it comes with they're coming with the Nest.js application or Nest.js configurations. So when you are using Node.js as a backend, think about Nest.js. If you are very familiar with Express.js, I would not recommend to use Nest.js right away. Please bring the necessary experience with Express.js and Node.js, enough experience, and then you can transform your Express.js application to Nest.js. Then you have both the right experience and the latest tools with you. And doing things comparatively will be very, very advantage for you, because without knowing how Express.js worked previously, without having any other options, without knowing that experience or that knowledge, it won't be good for you to keep continuing doing with these applications, because having those knowledge is very important to compare things, and having the right knowledge, and with having so many options to use, then you can think about what option would be the optimum one to build good applications. If you know only one thing, whatever the advantage or disadvantage it has, you have to use it because that's the only thing you know. So I would recommend to know pretty much all the elements that you could use, and master one thing first and then jump into the other. So I would suggest to use Next.js once you have the right knowledge with Express.js. And as I mentioned previously, for the database, you can use MySQL. If you have relational databases, and I mean, if you have a design to do a relational database, if you have very clear ER diagram, entity relationship diagram, then I would not suggest to transform it to a MongoDB data design to build MongoDB because you are using MERN stack. So don't do that. Even though you're using MERN stack, as I mentioned here, you have your alternatives. Use MySQL if you have a clear database design like ER diagram. And if it works with you, if it's the requirement, then just do it in MySQL or any other relational databases like Aurora or RDS in AWS. You can use it. And also there are some other alternatives like for front end, you could think about AngularJS, but I would not recommend. For MySQL is for databases, except MySQL, you could use object relational databases like Postgres and some graph databases. If you need graph databases, you could use it. This is the usual MERN stack journey and the tools and technologies you could use. Let's talk about the full stack engineering roadmap with MERN stack by thinking that you already have selected the MERN stack as your technology stack. So this is very important for you because after gaining all the knowledge about full stack development, we have to think about what are the other key requirements we have to fulfill to become the actual full stack development or full stack engineer. Because knowing only the front end and the back end and the database is not what we expect from a full stack engineer, right? We recently, I will give you a simple example before going to the main discussion of this topic to understand things easily. In my company, I mean, not my company, the company I'm working, which is Brand Finance, we recently conducted interviews to hire 3 full stack engineers at the same time. But after having 16 interviews, I couldn't find at least one right candidate to throw to the next round. So in the first round, all the 16, actually not 16, this time it was 12. All the 12 CVs, all the 12 candidates failed to get the right score to pass to the next round. And I was rethinking about, did I do anything wrong in my interviews? Because I'm pretty sure that I aligned my list of questions clearly. And our full stack technologies are PHP, Laravel, and React. We use PHP, Laravel as the backend, and use React for the front end, and we have MySQL database and all that. So we are not using MERN stack. We have different technologies. That was a architectural design decision that has been taken like 5 or 6 years ago. I wasn't part of that at the time. However, we have this specific stack, so we had to interview for multiple candidates to find the right 3 guys. I mean, not guys, 3 candidates to fulfill this 3 positions. But as I mentioned in the first round, I couldn't find them. I was thinking about, did I do anything wrong with my interviews or with my questions? I hope not. And I discussed with my boss, who is CTO in the company. And then we discussed to lower our bar a little bit with the questions and with the expectations actually, to check that if the top scorer or top 3 scorers would be fit with our expectations after lowering the bar. And then we could find actually 2 full stack developers from that 12 candidates. And the problem with them, even though we selected, the problem with them, they have the right, mostly backend knowledge. They have some front-end knowledge, and only that. So we are not only expecting the front-end and backend knowledge from a full stack engineer, and they fail to score on the other aspects, mainly the DevOps side. So we are not hiring a DevOps engineer, but as a full stack developer, you have to have your knowledge in the infrastructure as well. As a full stack developer, you have to have a good knowledge about how things are connected. I mean, how the front end and back end and database are connected in a certain way. Even though you have used a single set of technologies or single set of requirements or single set of functionalities throughout your whole career, you still have to know about the latest technologies, what the world use, and also you have to be updated with the things. Even though you are not using latest tools, you have to be updated with them. Those are the points they could not score very well. But we had to fulfill that positions in our company rapidly, very quickly. So we hired 2 of them, and currently we are conducting so much more interviews to find a front-end developer because we already fulfilled 2 full stack developers. It takes so much time to find another full stack developer, so we decided to go through some front-end CVs to hire a React developer. So nowadays we are conducting interviews for that. So that's what I mentioned by we are not talking about only the backend and front-end and database in full stack engineer. There are some other aspects as well. So in this roadmap, I would say the first thing you have to consider is JavaScript. If you are very new to programming, I would say first get the knowledge about programming concepts by using some flowcharts and some pseudocodes and some algorithms. You could know about those algorithms and the programming processing, and then you can enter to the coding with JavaScript. JavaScript is very easy, like Python. So you could use Python as well. But if you are focusing on MERN stack, better to start with JavaScript. After having the right knowledge in JavaScript, you could use so much of available resources, like you could use JavaScript MDN documentation, you could use W3 School, you could use Udemy, you could use YouTube. There are so much of resources you could use. After having the right knowledge of JavaScript, then start with ReactJS as the front end, because again, that is very easy to understand. And as a beginner, you could easily get into the right knowledge, because there are so many forums and available resources to study JavaScript, I mean React with JavaScript. And also the React official documentation is very straightforward and very clear. So you could refer and you could use it as your own Bible to find out anything you need on the spot to fulfill your requirements in your application development. So that would be very useful. And after having the right knowledge in ReactJS, what is the right knowledge? That's up to you. You could go far, like at least to build a good application that you can think about as very satisfying, right? If you're satisfied with your front-end development skills, then that's the right knowledge you could get. And after that, learn about Node.js, because then you can slowly build your backend application. First, build your backend application and deal with some functionalities, how you can communicate with the front end, how you can start your first HTTP API or RESTful API with ExpressJS. Then you can use it in your front end application. And when you are integrating APIs, you will know much more details, much more another tools in your React application. And after that, you can deal with some security options in your APIs. After that, you can go to the database part. In your database part, I would suggest to start in the study circle in this learning curves. You can start with, or I suggest to start with MongoDB. But I strongly recommend to go with MySQL as well. Once you are done with MongoDB, please go with MySQL as well, because in the industry, like in my company, the company I'm working in, we mostly use MySQL databases because we have so many relationships between data. So even though it's not an element in the MERN stack, I would strongly recommend to use or try out MySQL as well as your database. And along with the roadmap, after having all those necessary knowledge about each and every element, try to replace one of those elements with the alternatives like I mentioned. Nest.js you could use as an alternative. And for the React application, you could use Next.js or Vue.js. I would recommend to use Next.js if you are looking for another experience. After having the right knowledge of React.js, I would recommend to use Next.js. So you can get the server-side rendering experience as well. After that, try to find out some, try to get some infrastructure, cloud infrastructure knowledge using either AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud. Personally, I would like to use AWS a lot. In my current company, the company I'm working on, I'm the one taking care of the infrastructure in AWS. So I had to do my first certification in AWS, which is the cloud practitioner one. And currently I'm doing my second examination or second certification to get the associate architect, solution architect certificate. So you can go through the AWS journey or Microsoft Azure journey to find out the latest tools and technologies, how you can deal with the infrastructure. Because if you think about you are a sole developer in your company, you are the only developer in your company, or let's say in your personal project or in your freelancing projects, if you are the only developer, you have to do all these things. You have to play the developer role, you have to play the DevOps role, you have to play the business analyst role, you have to take all the client requirements, you have to take all the Scrum Master thing to communicate with the client. So from project manager to business analyst to developer to DevOps, all those roles you have to play along with your your own if you are the sole developer in a certain project. So first come to that perspective and then think about this scenario. So then you will be very key player, or very, I would say, nowadays there are in so many companies, not specifically in Sri Lanka, most of some top companies in the world, they are doing layoffs to reduce their budget and to do some other works. They just fire people, right? So if you are someone like a actual full stack developer with all the aspects with covered by, with all the aspects are covered, then I would say you will be very key people that company needed. not company could fire, right? So to become that person, you can cover all these things in the roadmap. So after having the required infrastructure knowledge, I'm not saying that you have to become another DevOps engineer. Just know the right and necessary infrastructure knowledge. Then you could think about getting some knowledge about latest AI tools and prompt engineering. That was not the case a couple of years ago in full stack engineering roadmap, but now you have to think about getting that area of knowledge as well, because to deal with the latest tools of AIs and to compete with your colleagues and the requirements that you are getting from the company, to compete with all that, you have to take this ladder to go with the AI tools. So first of all, take the right knowledge about prompt engineering, which is very important, because if you don't know how to use ChatGPT, that will be very, very useless. That would be a disaster if you are not using ChatGPT very correct way, I would say, right? Is there any correct way or not correct way to use ChatGPT? Yes. Why? Because ChatGPT is just a language model, large language model. It comes with the natural language processing. So it's not a natural AI. It's an artificial intelligence. It's artificial intelligence. It's not natural intelligence. It's artificial intelligence. So the difference between them, we have to take the ownership, not the AI, right? As a human, as a natural intelligence, we have to take the ownership. So if you let the AI take the ownership, then you don't get the right result. So someone could say that you are becoming a slave of AI. So don't let do that to you. Just take the ownership. You should know what you are talking about with the AI, with ChatGPT or with Google Bard or whatever it is, the Gemini. We have so much of language models these days. So know prompt engineering very well. Then you will know that how to deal with ChatGPT or any other language tools. Like there are so many things to learn. After having the right knowledge about prompt engineering, then you will feel that you are getting the right result from ChatGPT, expected result from ChatGPT. And then not only using ChatGPT, but with so much tools like Copilot and Curse AI. And if you are very much into user experience and user designs, you could use Kling AI, you could use ChatGPT Sora, you could use Google FSX. So much of tools you can use to improve your knowledge as well as your outcome. So if you are a developer who uses ChatGPT to get codes and copy paste them into your code, you are not a good developer. Actually, you are not even a developer. You're just a copy paster, right? So for one example, if you have working code, but it's like messy, you could ask ChatGPT to analyze this code and make it better, like organize this code to have a better performance as well as better looking. Then before copy pasting that code into your code, just take a moment to realize what is this and get the idea of each and every code. If there anything questionable, ask ChatGPT at the same time what this code line does, and then you can get the right idea about it. Without knowing even a single line of code, don't put into your code, because then you don't have anyone to blame if anything goes wrong, right? So that's one part of knowing prompt engineering and all the ethics to use ChatGPT and all that language models and get that idea. That has been a crucial factor in the current or latest full stack engineering roadmap to know prompt engineering. After that, learn about all those mentioned AI tools. And with that, you will become very effective developer. So you could do things very fast with the knowledge of AI and prompt engineering. And then if you have the right attitude as well, along with all those things, you will be unreplaceable. Right. After that, after having all this knowledge about roadmap, one thing I wouldn't mention, actually, while you are doing your developments, there's no any specific place to put this. But while you are doing developments, you could get the knowledge about the version controlling. I'm talking about Git. So you could use Git. You could use any client like GitHub, which is open source, or other clients like Bitbucket, which is very handy by integrating with tools like Jira. And also you could use GitLab. And with those source control tools or clients, you can also deal with CI/CD because they are providing the latest tools with CI/CD like GitHub Actions or Bitbucket pipelines. You can use those CI/CD tools as well. So you can get that knowledge while doing code development. And after getting all the knowledge of that AI, as I mentioned, you're coming to the end of the roadmap and try to get some other knowledges about developing mobile applications, something like that. That's actually optional because knowing about another completely different field from the tech stack you're following will be a key advantage when you are applying for new roles in your future companies. And to take a change in your current role to become a new developer or to become a new developer with a new role, you could use those knowledge. So that will be optional, but still that would be something you can consider in your roadmap. Right. After completing the roadmap, you can think about having the right job then, because like if you are still undergraduate, you can't complete the whole roadmap because you are not a actual engineer to get all the knowledge and all the experience. Actually, you can get all the knowledge with available resources nowadays, but you can't get the actual experience without working in a proper industrial project. So to complete the roadmap, it take about a couple of years actually. But after completing that journey, you could say that now I'm a actual full stack engineer. So I will apply for this company for this job. And I should be able to get the right position because I would be very competitive with other candidates, and I should be able to answer all the questions in the interview because I have this journey with the right knowledge and right experience. So that's how you become a right full stack engineer. That's how you pursue your career up to the level you expected. And you could become very stand out and very key player in your company. So you'll be finally unreplaceable. I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please put in the chat. I will give you, like we have a couple of minutes to finish the discussion. I will give you a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will answer them one by one. And if you don't have questions right away, but if you have questions, like if you are having questions after preparing your notes, maybe you can contact me later via email. I think the coordinators have my email address, so you can contact me via email as well. One think there's one question. We are developing a web application that allows student book university and the administrators to add new events in the calendar. Each event will include information, photos, and other details. What is the most suitable database for this scenario? Should we use SQL or no SQL database like Mongo? So according to your short requirement description, I think it would be MySQL, because it looks like you're having some relationships, not some, but actually real relationships between things. To store images, you can't use the exact database. You can use something like AWS S3 bucket, and after uploading them, after uploading photos to the S3 bucket, you can get the URLs and store in your database. So you can follow that pattern. And I think you could use MySQL. Yeah.
All right, sir. So we have some questions in our question box as well. I'll read them out one by one. So the first question was, can you suggest tricks or steps to easily learn JavaScript and React, as I'm finding it difficult to remember things when I practice?
Right. The short answer is don't refer to notes every time. Try to get the experience while referring to them. So that experience will become your note in your head eventually. And after getting the right experience, if still you are missing some key details about the language, don't try to remember them, because there are so many documentations. Even nowadays, after having more than almost 7 years of experience in my JavaScript applications, if I need to put a date somewhere, I still find it from W3 school how to put JavaScript date, because I can't remember it, and there are so many different ways to use dates. So I'm not remembering it. I just find it in Google quickly and put it in my code. So don't try to remember things, just try to understand things. Once you understand that, that's it. You just need to find, you know where to find it. Can just Google it or ask ChatGPT. But you should know what that is. That's the thing.
All right, sir. So the next question is having an Oracle certification regarding MySQL would be a plus point in an interview?
Yes, exactly.
All right. So the next question is, what is your opinion about the effect of AI on web development? I mean, AI integration web applications.
Not too sure that what you mean by AI integrations of web applications, but if you're asking about if you're developing a web application and if there's any requirement to integrate some AI tools in your website, that would be like a requirement. So that is completely coming through with the requirements. But if you're asking about the impact of AI to develop web pages, that would be a whole different discussion, where it becomes a crucial thing to the industry, where AI is very impacted with the web development. But I think I gave that answer more or less in the full stack roadmap journey discussion, where you need to understand all the available, not all, but most of the available very useful tools in the industry. You don't have to become an AI engineer by knowing all the Pythons and Ruby and Rails and pretty much all the AI development languages and all that mathematical knowledge. All those, AI have so many mathematical knowledge. You need to have a statistical and so much of knowledge about mathematics, and also something like neural networks and AI agents, so much of them. You don't have to learn all that, because there are so many tools to use. You can to develop AIs, but that's not the focus. That's not the requirement. There are so many tools you could use to improve yourself while doing your developments. So that's how you face to that impact.
Right, so the next question is, do data science graduates learn full stack engineering courses for data science field?
Can you repeat the question?
Do data science graduates learn full stack engineering courses for data science field?
No. In data science, if you are really focusing on data science, only on data science, there are, I think, a couple of data science specific courses that comes with so much of mathematics. If you are using full stack engineering, that's very less mathematical knowledge you need. But with data science, you need a heavy mathematical knowledge, and there are some different. It's completely a different roadmap, I would say. So it's not full stack. Data science is a different roadmap. So there are some different courses you need to follow.
Right, so the next question is, how it would be beneficial for a full stack engineer to be being familiar with AL, ML? Is it a plus point in interviews?
Having AI and ML knowledge is a plus point always, but I'm not too sure about how much you get the advantage of knowing AI and ML to apply a full stack role, because in full stack role, we are really focusing on your full stack knowledge. Having a knowledge about AI is always a key point, plus point, but in the interview, you have to compete with other candidates with your full stack knowledge, not with your plus points. So it is always good to have plus points, but the first or the priority goes to the main part.
All right, sir.
Is that all?
So the next question is, when I use React, which and so next on the list is, when I use React, Vita, and Tailwind CSS for a main stack project, will there be any problems?
No, I think Tailwind is a good framework to use, CSS. If I ask, I mean, you can't give me the answer right away, but if I ask someone that why would you use Tailwind JS as CSS framework, if the answer is I have much more experience in Tailwind other than other CSS frameworks, then I would say okay. But if someone is saying that Tailwind is very strong and very powerful than other libraries, I would ask that person to explore some other libraries like Bootstrap, because Bootstrap is also very powerful and handy. So yeah, Tailwind is always fine to go with.
So next on the list is, most of the time there's a easy predefined way to do thing I'm trying to do with React. So to know what should I read or at least skim the documentation.
First of all, try to stick with the React official documentation, because yeah, that's true. It's true that to do certain stuff, there are so many options. There are so many ways to do. There may be only one right way to do that, and some other ways, or there are some multiple ways to do that in the right way. But you always have to stick with the documentation, because if someone asks you that why you develop this in this way, what is the reason you develop this way, you have to answer that. You have to justify why I did this in this way. Let's say you are creating a function in JavaScript or React, and you used some custom hooks in the React in a certain way with a certain pattern. And if someone, let's say your boss, asking you that, is asking that why you used it this way, can you justify? Then you have to justify with giving the reference why you use this, with refer to this. So that reference should be either the official documentation or another, like a formal or very famous resource, like a let's say Medium article, or let's say a Stack Overflow answer. It should not be ChatGPT answer, because there is no one to take the responsibility in ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just a program. It should be a documentation. So I think it's better to stick with the official documentation first, so you know where to find things exactly. Yeah.
Yes, so next on the list is most of the time there's a sorry, sir. Yes. So you earlier mentioned we can use MySQL as database. That means we use PHP MyAdmin for database part in React projects.
Sorry, you were cut out a little bit. Can you repeat it?
Sorry, sir. So the question was, so you mentioned earlier that we can use MySQL as database. That means can we use PHP MyAdmin for database part in React projects?
PHP MyAdmin is not a database. PHP MyAdmin is an interface to use MySQL database to deal with MySQL database. So the database is still MySQL. PHP MyAdmin is one way you can get the database to an interface, so you can easily deal with without doing SQL commands. I prefer to use MySQL. MySQL Workbench. That's very powerful tool to use and deal with MySQL databases. MySQL Workbench. If you are familiar with PHP MyAdmin, you could use it. PHP MyAdmin comes with so much local servers like WAMP server, MAMP server. It would be fine to use MySQL, PHP MyAdmin, but you have to know that PHP MyAdmin is not a database. It's just an interface.
So the next question is to get a job in web development, what kind of projects we need to really practice now in what languages?
That's very open question, very vague question. There would be so many answers for that. One specific answer would be follow MERN stack and try to get the real full stack discipline by following the roadmap I mentioned. That would be one answer, but there will be so many answers. Will open to a new discussion. So the short answer would be to get a job in the industry, software industry, follow the full stack engineering roadmap, but you have to be careful with how you can compete with other candidates or other developers in the industry, because nowadays it's becoming very crucial to deal with all the AIs. So you have to know that knowledge about prompt engineering and AI very well.
So there's a question asking, what should I do to get an internship?
Try to get an opportunity to do or involve in a industrial level project. That would be very helpful to find the right internship. Otherwise, there's a lot of unavailability of internships in companies nowadays, because I would say some of those roles have been fulfilled with different parties. Like there are so many other people are coming from so many other different fields to software industry, and even though they are very experienced people from their industries, they are still entering into the internship level sometimes. So there are some unavailabilities of internships nowadays, but it will be fixed, I think, in the next couple of years. But to get a real internship from a good company, I would say try to get the industrial level experience. So to get an industrial level experience, you have to be involved in with the industrial level project. So try to find an opportunity If not, sharp your academic level knowledge as much as possible and do some projects by your own. Maybe it could be some academic projects as well mentioned in your course modules, but if you could complete some impactful projects, not just a regular project like e-commerce application or food ordering or food delivering application, it should be very competitive and impactful project where you have found something like innovative. If there is any innovative or very impactful part in your project, that would be very helpful to find your internship.
Next on the list is what tech stacks would you recommend for beginners to get started with, and what makes them a good starting point? Means mean React with Spring Boot or any other?
Let's start with your preferred ones, I would say, because all of the companies in Sri Lanka are not looking for MERN stack developers, right? If you are familiar with MERN stack, don't waste the time. Just go with MERN stack. If you are right now familiar with React and Java Spring Boot, try to sharpen your knowledge in that area and try to get a internship. Or if you are very keen to learn about C or C++, just do that. But knowing that there are lack of opportunities in Sri Lanka, so first follow your preferred one, and then take a good survey about the industrial technologies what industry use. I think there are a couple of surveys that have been done in past few years. I'm also conducting some of those surveys. So try to find the best or the most usable technologies in the industry. That would be useful to find it for you.
So there's a question, should we practice more on MongoDB for future of database side in web development?
Yes, MongoDB would be very useful. And the key thing is learning MongoDB is not a big thing. You could learn MongoDB quickly and you can master MongoDB in a couple of years. Try to get knowledge about, if you already have knowledge about MongoDB, then try to get knowledge about SQL or relational databases as well, because only knowing MongoDB wouldn't take you to the expected level. So knowing MongoDB is very useful, but with MongoDB, then you need to take another step to get your other skills as well.
That's and I guess that would be the last question. There's one more. In case of implementing an AI integrated web application, is full stack developers' task to implement AI part as well in industry?
Developing AI tools, not. If you're talking about integrating an AI tool or API, yes.
And so there's a few more as well. What's your take on the future of desktop app development? Is it still worth learning?
It is. Let's take one of powerful tool we are using in desktop applications. I would say Adobe Photoshop. Photoshop have becoming very crucial, very useful tool with the AI that has been come through with Photoshop. So there are so many applications like that we still use in desktop applications. We use Google Chrome to open web browser. After opening the web browser, it would be whole another world, but we are doing all those web applications in the standalone application, in the desktop application, which is Google Chrome, right? So there are so many opportunities in developing desktop applications, but the thing is, the proportion is not 50-50. I think mostly in Sri Lanka, we can't. It would be rare to find a desktop application development job. I'm not too sure about that also because I wasn't in a part of that. I didn't touch that part in the industry so far. But in most of the foreign companies in different parts of the world, I think there are so many opportunities for desktop application developments.
All right, so I guess that's the end of the Q&A session. And we have got a special announcement. The delegates who participated throughout the session actively, please make sure that you all sign your attendance sheet because as we informed earlier that we are providing you an e-certificate for participation. So please make sure we have another session scheduled up for tomorrow at 7 p.m. on CI/CD integration with cloud computing. So please be in touch with us and join our delegates WhatsApp group to be updated. And make sure you'll reserve your time slot at 7 p.m. tomorrow for another exciting session on web apps. And thank you so much, sir. So thank you so much for delivering a session packed with knowledge and practical takeaways. And personally, I believe that one of the most awaited moments for many of us was to finally uncover the secrets behind how these modern web apps are actually built and how can we build one ourselves. So I guess those mysteries were clearly explained and beautifully broken down today. And we seriously found clear answers in your talk. So thank you so much. And thank you for that interest-triggering and insightful session, sir. And I guess it's time to thank you, sir. And it's time to wrap up the session for today. And thank you all for your enthusiastic participation. We hope you all found this session useful and inspiring. So until we meet again, stay curious and stay inspired. Most of all, keep building and have a great evening. Goodbye.